Ladies and sisters, friends and fighters, I would like to welcome you all to this session, a session where we will find out more about women and gender in arts and entertainment. My name is Nisha Besara, and I'm the General Manager of the Culture Foundation of the Swedish Postcode Lottery. The Culture Foundation uses some of the revenue of the lottery to give support to innovative and transboundary cultural projects with a positive social impact. The cultural program here at the Nordic Forum is one of the initiatives we are very proud to support. I myself have a background in politics, in media, in opinion making. So I'm quite new in the cultural sector, and I'm very, very eager to hear more about this topic today. But before we go ahead to the session and the topic, women and gender in art and entertainment, we will have the opportunity to enjoy some fantastic music acts. First of all, we will hear Vegakören with Sara Turesson. It's a Swedish girls' choir with a repertoire that includes Robin, Radiohead, and Lady Gaga. After that, we have a guest who is an international Nordic superstar. You have most likely heard her both in the Swedish and the Finnish Eurovision Song Contests. You might also have heard some of her songs in a smoky jazz club in New York. I'm of course talking about Arja Saijonmaa. But first of all, give a big round of applause to Vegakören and Sara Turesson.
När du andas in till mig, så nära du rör mig och jag går i tur. Ingen borde tala och riskera förstöra den sköraste stund som är nu.
duva låg havets strand och allt var sol och kärlek allt och törsten brann som solens fackla brann men havet var för salt och törsten brann som solens fackla brann men havet var för salt. På stranden satt vi under sol och vind. I sanden skrev vi hennes namn. Men floden kom och havet smög sig in och hennes namn försvann. Men floden kom och havet smög sig in och hennes namn försvann. Så försvann vårt liv i kärleksbrand. Men vi förstod vi hade fel. Och soldröm, vindram, havsdröm, ni försvann. Med er förbrann vår själ. Och soldröm, vindram, havsdröm, ni försvann. Med er förbrann vår själ.
Thank you, dear friends. This song tells about the secret beach, and it came to be the symbol in fight against injustice, violence, and dictatorship in Greece. The secret beach was freedom. We wrote her name on the sand, and that name was freedom. It's very curious that in the times of crisis, the power of song, words, culture becomes essential in people's lives. I have witnessed it in Greece. I have witnessed it in the dictatorship in South America. To my mind, what we need now, today, is a new culture. We need action-orientated new women's culture. A new cultural movement that I would love to call Women Without Borders. And because power of culture is so important, and it shows as its best in the times of crisis. We have to build this crisis, this action now around women, because it must be agitative and fighting culture. And I would, to be able to show the tiger teeth, no guts, no glory. And I would love to build it around this wonderful, not so well known Convention of United Nations. And it's, let me repeat it, Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women was signed 1978 and 1980. Why don't make a new culture around this convention? Why don't make a Women Without Borders? Why don't make a women's cultural revolution? But nothing comes if we don't get nourishment, dear sisters and women, nourishments for our souls, to get our energy and build up our courage. And nothing happens if the heart is not with. Like the Chilean composer Violeta Parra wrote about gratitude for everything we have got in life, for all the senses that everybody has, for the eyes we can see, for the ears we can hear, for the heart that beats for the good things against the evil things, for the brain that examines in the scientific ways the new ways for the humanity. In the song that everybody is singing the same song, that song, a song that belongs to everybody. The song is called Gracias a la vida. Life, how can I thank you? Jag vill tacka livet. Jag vill tacka livet som gett mig så mycket. Det gav mig 2 ögon, och när jag dem öppnar kan jag klart urskilja det svarta från det vita. Och högt där uppe himlens mantel strödd med stjärnor, bland mängder människor och den som jag älskar. Jag vill tacka livet som gett mig så mycket. Det har gett mig hörsel som i all sin vidhet fångar natten och dagen, syrsor och små fåglar, turbiner, hammare, ett hundskall och ett ösregn, och röstens ömhet hos dem som jag älskar. Jag vill tacka livet som gett mig så mycket. Det gav mig lång vandring för så trötta fötter. Jag gick genom städer, genom djupa vatten, över stränder, berg, i öknar och på slätt land, hem till ditt hus och dina gröna ängar. Jag vill tacka livet som gett mig så mycket. Det gav mig lång vandring för så trötta fötter. Jag gick genom städer, genom djupa vatten, över stränder, berg, i öknar och på slätt land, hem till ditt hus och dina gröna ängar.
Jag vill tacka livet som gett mig så mycket. Det gav mig ett hjärta som i grunden darrar när jag ser på frukten av det hjärnan skapar och det goda så långt borta från det onda. När jag ser in i dina klara ögon, jag vill tacka livet som gett mig så mycket. Det har gett mig skrattet, det har gett mig smärtan, så att jag kan urskilja lyckan ifrån sorgen. De två ting som skapar alla mina sånger, och mina sånger som är era sånger, och alla sånger som är samma sånger, och mina sånger som är era sånger, och alla sånger som är samma sånger.
Thank you so much, Arja Saijonmaa, Vegakören, and Sara Turesson. Now to the topic. In the coming 45 minutes, no less than 5 very interesting women will give us their views and thoughts on the topic, women and gender in arts and entertainment. First of all, we have Tina Rosenberg. She is professor in gender studies and principal of the University of Arts in Helsinki. Tina is also, as you probably know, one of the founders of the Swedish political party Feministiskt Initiativ. Today she will talk about celebrating performing arts. After that we will hear Anna Särner, who is the CEO of the Swedish Film Institute, who gives support to Swedish film. Anna has worked actively to change all structures in the film sector, and today she will tell us how with a little bit of action, anything is possible. After Anna, we have Jenny Julia Wallinheimo Heimonen. She's a textile artist, a lecturer, and an activist. Jenny Julia's work links the issues of gender and disabilities, and today she will talk about how assistive design maintains the low status of women with disabilities. Fourth, we have Teresa Franzén from the organization Ladyfest. Ladyfest is an organization that works to ensure equal opportunities between men and women in the cultural world, and it started in the US in year 2000. Teresa will share with us how Ladyfest sets the stage for a gender-equal cultural life here in Malmö. Last but not least, we have Rudo Shigudo. She is an activist and artist from Zimbabwe, active for sexual and reproductive rights for women. She is also coordinator for the campaign Wars on Women's Bodies, transforming women's narratives through political art. And that is the topic of her presentation today. So the 5 speakers that I have just presented have about 10 minutes each, and after that a panel consisting of Tina Rosenberg, Anna Särner and Rudo Shigudo will close this session, and we will talk about how equality can be achieved by using culture as a tool. But first of all, a big applause to Tina Rosenberg.
Dear all, dear feminists, all the world is a stage. This comes of Shakespeare's as you like it. And this year, we do celebrate Shakespeare's 50th birthday. I'm not necessarily celebrating Shakespeare when I'm standing here. I don't mind Shakespeare. But I wanted to tell you the story how one becomes a feminist while studying at a university. When I was a young theater student, we were told that there were no important women in the history of performing arts. We were studying the Greeks, the ancient theater where all the women's parts were performed by men, and there was no explanation and no problem with this. Then we learned that in Indian, Chinese and Japanese theater, women could not perform the parts of women because a woman's body would destroy the parts. Then we learned that in ancient Rome, well, the parts were still, the women's parts were performed by men, and there was no explanation. Then the early modern theater in Europe, we had a few women, but very little female presence, because Christianity and the church hated both the women's and the men's bodies. The performing body and the hatred of religion against the body has always been a very big problem for an art form where you basically use your body as an instrument. Then the opera. It came along with the voices of the castratos. How strange wasn't that? But anyway, it happened, and we actually had a few female voices, but the superior voice was the voice of the castrato. Then we came to Shakespeare, and the male parts were performed by men, but the women's parts were performed by men, because, as we were told, and as the people of the time were telling their audiences, if you would show a woman on the stage, you would actually, there would arouse some undesirable desires among the audience. But what they didn't get was that if you are showing two men together, there might be some homoerotic desires arousing in the audience. Then something happened. Women started to perform. But what kind of parts were they performing? All of a sudden, all the women were dying. Dying women in ancient Greek plays, Rome, not so much in Shakespeare, but also there. The women were evil and they died for all kinds of reasons. In opera, the women were dying too. Brunhilde, Norma, Carmen, all these women were dying, and the French theorist Hélène Cixous said that going to a theater is like going to one's own funeral, because all the women are dying and there is no hope. They just die off. They disappear. Well, then something happened. All of a sudden there were women and there were feminists and there were performers who actually didn't believe in the fact that there had never been women on stage, because they had been wrong all along the way. There had been women on stage performing already in ancient Greece, in Rome, also in early Christianity, also during Shakespeare times and later on. And the question is, how could I, because I still think that I'm not that stupid, but how could we stand there or sit there passively and taking on this kind of education, never really asking the question how impossible it was that the gender thing was never questioned? And then some sisters came along and said, well, how about this? That gender actually could also be a performance. And it explained it everything. Anyway, all the stuff was explained by the fact that the gender might be performed in very different ways. The feminist performance, using the body and using the autobiographical stories of women, telling the stories of women all over the world in global theatre, but also about the queer bodies, about the non-white bodies, about the colonial bodies, about the abused bodies, about all kinds of bodies, disabled bodies, and all those things that we have never been told before, have been told by activist performers. And today, when we see and we have this diversity of performance all over the world, so I just want to say you something. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for everyone who is standing up not only for human rights, but also for culture and the arts. Because in these times of neoliberal politics, there are cuts also in the cultural and in the fields of the arts. And if you could imagine, or can you imagine, a world without music, without the performing arts, visual arts, without the cinema, without anything of the kind? And this is, I think, an important thing to remember, that when we are coming together as feminists from all over the world, not only from the Nordic region, it's important to remember that there is also economy behind everything. We have a tradition within the Nordic countries. We have the welfare state policy of state funding of culture. If the political direction is going to be as it has been for the last 10 years, 20 years, almost 30 years, so we are not going to have the funding we are used to in the future. So what I'm telling you is that, well, performing arts might have a strange history. I might be weird myself, loving this art form, but I can't imagine anything as powerful as people singing and dancing, speaking and actually performing in the front of other people. Despite the digital culture and new technology, it's still the human body that is making that effort to other human bodies who are sitting in the audience. And it is just like politics, believe me. Seeing someone perform, seeing someone, listening to someone who is singing, and actually getting a message across. I can't imagine anything as powerful as that. So, dear friends, nothing comes of nothing. It's another kind of Shakespearean verse or phrase, and there are a lot of them, of course, in the literature. But whatever you think about the arts, being something unnecessary, something that is only there for entertainment, I think you should think twice. You might not think the way, but all those who are not here, and especially those who don't understand what the arts are about to make cuts also in our countries. So beware of fascist and populist and new right-wing politics, because we have seen them coming. They are here. This is Europe for you today. And please do sing out and do protest, because for that matter, you need the artists and you need everyone, not only women, but everyone who can stand up against the European fascism of today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina Rosenberg. Welcome up on stage, Anna Saner.
Hello, I just want to share with you, when I was 34 years old, I was elected CEO of the Swedish Advertising Association. My predecessor, a man, told me as a good advice before starting off my job that, Anna, don't talk about gender equality because you will be considered as the whiny one. So I said, yeah, of course, I listened to you, my predecessor, and then I started off my job with no media training at all. And the first thing that we had done that was relieved that day was that we had made a survey among the advertising business of the salaries. And no surprise, the salaries were not equal in the advertising business, which I was called up by a reporter of the Advertising Weekly magazine, and he said, well, Anna, what do you say about this? And I said, yeah, you know, for me, it's no surprise. But of course, it's really crap. And then we spoke about half an hour about gender equality not existing in the advertising business or in the rest of the society. What could we do about it? Blah, 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 blah. And I thought that I made my point really clear. And then I went home, and 2 days later I came up to the office, and we got all the magazines to be delivered. And they were spread out on a table with me on the whole front page. This was my third day at the office, but it was me on the first front page, and the headline was, "This is crap," says Anna Sörner. And then I realized, I have a platform. I can do things. What I didn't realize was that no media is interested in hearing the explanations. So I kept on talking and talking and talking about why this is and what can people do and so on. And I started to get really tired of all the words. So I said to myself, we need to do things to talk about. So I started a book which was called in Swedish Roffe och andra kvinnliga förebilder, in English like David and other female role models, and was about how it is to be a female copywriter in the business. And that was a big success in the newspaper, starting a conversation, which was exactly what I wanted. But at the Swedish Advertising Association, I didn't have any power because I didn't have any money. I was just the talking machine. 13 years later, when I was 47 years old, I was appointed the head of the Swedish Film Institute. And 13 years later, I was really used to being in the media. As a female leader, you always have to explain for every male reporter why the world looks like it does. So that day, more or less, the day I started, we had a presentation of the films that were going to premiere that half year, the spring of 2012, I guess. And the female directors were 8%. So I had an interview with the Swedish Public Radio, and they said, "So Anna, what do you say? Why does it look like this?" And then I remembered my platform, and I said, "You know, it's a catastrophe." The next day in the media, me on the big front page, "It's a catastrophe," says Anna Sörner. The thing and the difference with this job that I have now is that we have money and we are funding Swedish film. And where the money goes, the attention goes. We have actually been working a lot with gender equality activities, but we never dared to say that gender equality is not 40-60 or some rubbish, it's 50-50. And that is over time, and it has to be 50-50. And the business and the government that wrote actually the assignment for us to fund equally, and I said I interpret equally with 50-50, they were really shocked. Because no one thought anyone would take that serious, because no one ever have done that before. But then I was a bit more experienced this time, so I thought, let's start off seeing what kinds of arguments do you always hear, why female directors, scriptwriters or producers are so few. And it's always the same arguments that you hear. There are no female directors, no competent ones. And we said to ourselves, okay, let's start a site like the Nordic Women Literature. So we're starting off a site which will be called Nordic Women Film. And we will show all the Nordic women in film from the film's birth, which is, fortunately for us, only 120 years. But you know, it's considered that the first long feature film in the world was made by Griffith. It was The Birth of a Nation, and of course he is a genius, and it's the most fantastic film ever made. While the truth is, the first long feature film was made by a woman called Lois Weber. She's made 100 long feature films. She was the richest director by that time because she was the most successful. But we don't remember her. It was like Tina said. So we're starting a portal. We will help female directors to get established by giving them education and a network. We will do studies, we will do research, and we are counting. And we're not only counting for a year and then 2 months later look back to the year before and say, you know, it's still crap. We are counting every decision we take and we communicate it. So we will have the awareness all the time, because numbers is the only thing that people cannot avoid. So by that, we know that the business knows we are counting what kind of female directors, script writers, and producers they come to us with. And that has meant, by now, and I just want to emphasize, we don't take that many decisions, so we shouldn't count every year. But by now, I've been the CEO for almost 3 years now. In the mid of 2004, we funded 50% female directors, 60% female scriptwriters, and almost 70% of female producers. And yeah. And what about the competence? Because I get to hear a lot, Anna, if you have to choose between a female director and a good idea, what do you choose? And then you can say at the Swedish Big Film Award Guldbaggen, the Swedish Oscar, the past 4 years, and we've had the best prizes going only to female directors. 3 out of 4 have taken part of the activities that we have been doing. Without our aimed activities, they would never have had the opportunities. So, with some activity, anything is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inspiration, Anna Säner. Welcome up on stage, Jenny Julia Wallinheimo Heimonen. The stage is yours.
I have a passion for fascinating assistive equipment, as well as for those that maintain the low status of disability. Equipment is a part of a daily image of dressing. It should send hints about social status, values, interests, and personality. However, equipment given as medical rehabilitation doesn't transform into expressive role dresses. They become a uniform of unproductive outcast. Technology and design of phones and household appliances progress at high speed. But where is the assistive equipment that is so intelligent and good-looking that everybody wants it, no matter if they have an impairment or not? Barrier-freeness is said to be ugly and difficult to carry out, though real accessibility is desired luxury. All good hotels are accessible. People with money and power appreciate the luxury of accessibility and user-friendliness. But in Finland, equipment is paid by municipalities and hospital districts. Functionality is the only thing that matters. Even it's known how the first impression has, for example, an effect on getting a job. I don't understand how the society can afford to give so clumsy equipment to people whose entering into labor market is the most difficult. Inclusive design lifted people with disabilities to a source of inspiration. Nevertheless, we are still underrepresented in an equipment design. Tacit knowledge from our experiences of good usability is rarely ennobled into innovations to benefit the whole society. At its best, smart equipment could give its user the special abilities of superheroes. But for a non-disabled designer, it's difficult to solve the social situations in which disabilities collide with the structural barriers of society. Result is often an equipment which helps the disabled act like those without disabilities, not in a new, unforeseen way. Guidance to supposed normality would be out of the question in almost any other minorities. Could you imagine a women's organization whose action plan would be drawn up by men? Many people think that equipment's aim is to compensate impairments. After the First World War, it was enough. Equipment made it possible for people with disabilities to work and feed their families. Compensation had a socio-economic interest. Modern equipment aims at normality of body and mind. Prostheses can be controlled by nerve signals, and brain can send orders to them, same way as to the organic body parts. Equipment of the future concentrates on affecting identity. Productivity is no longer related to physical ability to work. Gene technology makes it possible to produce organic and artificial organs, skills and features already in the womb. Normality loses its meaning, and soon we all get more alternative ways to be human. Most equipment are carried close to the body, so their emotional pleasure is important. Succeeded equipment gives social and ideological delight. However, I have met teachers of equipment design who are surprised of the idea that equipment must bring pride or joy to its user. Teaching is still often given from the medical point of view. When I held a workshop to landmine survivors in Bosnia-Herzegovina, they wanted folding wheels to their foot prostheses to be able to skateboard when in a hurry. They wished to have a thin display on the surface of prostheses to be able to upload patterns from a memory card, or campaigns against the war, or my favorite, in constant lack of money, sell advertising space as people stare at their feet anyway. I would love to have recycled materials in my equipment. An art lover is looking for sculptures to support moving. Nerd dreams of robotics. And a vintage freak is searching for assistive design classics. I'm dreaming that people with disabilities would be equipped to be the lighthouses of information, safety, and entertainment. Speech synthesizers with simultaneous interpretation could cause envy at seminars like this. In cases of accidents, our codes could measure vital functions, and we would be the stars of parties thanks to the media devices integrated into our bodies. But why I don't decorate my crutch to look better? Decorating is related to power. I don't believe that I would be treated any better as a short disabled woman if I fasten knitted tags to my crutch or paint it. If I don't get the crutch of my dreams, a real conversation piece made of fragrant rosewood or transparent such as Cinderella's glass shoe, I think it's better that people in their fear of disabilities are a bit afraid of my crutch than find it cute. Children want sticker and glitter to their equipment, but how many of you decorate your winter coats, your bikes, your shoes or your phones yourself? I think it's unfair to assume that people with disabilities should be able to pimp up their equipment to be street credible. But I also have a problem with easy-to-dress clothes for wheelchair users. I accept the aim for firefighters, but women with disabilities aren't outside the quick cycle of fashion. It's more important to arrange enough time for assistants to get a woman into a dress she wants. According to studies, strengthening of self-expression protects us from violence and abuse. Soon, we all have robots as assistive device. Many of them use technologies that imitate human behavior. But I don't want a washing machine to read my facial expressions, or my laptop to suggest, take a walk, your typing seems stressed. I am allergic to the structures of power. Maybe you want a fridge that controls the intake of vitamins and calories, or a phone application to cure depression. But as a disabled woman, I find it bitter for the self-image to constantly hear how somebody knows better what is good for you. Design blogs give the impression that soon we all move around with portable vehicles. But how is it intended to get everybody on the wheels in the world where the human rights of people with disabilities are opposed by claiming that it's more expensive not to build thresholds than to build them? Technology and design are a remarkable way for people with disabilities away from despised and invisible social situation. International conventions on human rights can never remove the low status of disability as revolutionarily as top design. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny Julia. Now welcome up on stage Teresa Franzén from Ladyfest Malmö.
Thank you for having me today. It's such an honor to share this stage with these great speakers. I'll be talking to you about how Ladyfest sets the stage for a gender-equal cultural life in Malmö in 8 minutes. So, let's go. Ladyfest Malmö is a feminist cultural organization, and we work for a more equal cultural scene. We started Ladyfest Malmö in 2010, and frankly, we were fed up with a cultural scene that lacked gender awareness. Of course, there were great productions, but generally, what we saw was guys on stage, everywhere. With backgrounds in band booking and event producing and so on, we were many cultural producers heading out into a field that was so obviously not welcoming for women. Because it's not just about who's on stage. Who are the event producers? Who are the light and sound engineers? And who are the stage hands? So without going too much into structures, we were all quite aware of, if all these positions are occupied by men, they will keep on booking their male friends on stage. So we started Ladyfest Malmö. Thank you. I don't know how familiar you are with Ladyfest as a concept, but it started in Olympia, in the state of Washington in year 2000. And the first Ladyfest was a week-long festival, and it held bands with only females on stage. There were also talks and discussions, and some of these were female separatists. Everyone who has ever been part of feminist activism knows that you need to keep your back free. You need to keep everything in order, because otherwise you will have critics from all fields scanning your work. This is something we slowly realized, and we started to draw guidelines. We started to create our manifest. Well, Ladyfest, I meant, of course. For example, number 1, we are a separatist working group. This is our feminist strategy. And this is how we, within our group, create our own comfort zone. 2, we always pay reasonable fees to acts playing at Ladyfest Malmö events. And we never work for free. 3, we work with what we call feministic high-fiving, feministisk ryggdunk. And this means that we want to collaborate with and draw attention to other feminist activists working with other strategies than we do. We also realized that we had to justify our existence. And it's always good to prove your thesis with data. So we started the project Ladyfest Malmö räknar. Ladyfest Malmö counts. We needed proof. We needed numbers on paper to face the critics with arguments like, but hey, it's not that bad. Sweden is one of the most gender equal countries. Well, what about all these dudes on stage? So we started counting. This is very Feminism 1A. We started to count how many men and how many women there were on the 6 biggest live stages in Malmö. Our method was based on grouping live acts into a female act with a majority of females, a male act with male majority, and a 50-50 act where there is equal representation. It's simple. And there are other groups, such as Jämställd Festival in Sweden, using this method. So we counted, and we counted. For 6 months, we counted, presenting every month's result in the end of that month. And it was very disappointing. The overall numbers for Malmö's 6 biggest live stages, November 2011 till April 2012, 80.6% were male acts, 13% were female acts, and 6.4% were 50-50 acts. Yeah, that's depressing. We did get some constructive feedback and a lot of angry event producers on our tail, but the debate had started. We did have some exceptions, and if you want to know the full method, you can read about it on our homepage, in Swedish though, or you can just contact me. I'd love to tell you all about it. One thing here is very important to know. We had long and hard discussions within the group on the difficulties regarding dividing people into male or female, because we all know that it's not that simple. But we had these depressing numbers, and unfortunately, we had justified Ladyfest Malmö's existence, because it was very clear that the 6 biggest stages were highly unequal. So a sad story slowly turned into a happy one, and this was 2012. And a lot has happened since then. There are many good feminist initiatives in Malmö working together. And we also believe that the audience has become more aware what to expect from producers and venues here in Malmö. For example, Sommarscen Malmö, an outdoor festival of performing arts, which is funded by the city of Malmö. As of today, they have 38% female acts and 32% 50-50 acts. And, yeah, that's great. And at the Baser Malmö, which is a famous nightclub, 9 women out of 17 in total are the club producers, with a majority of clubs that have a feminist focus. I want to say that Ladyfest Malmö is not perfect, and we need help with getting better. We are very white and very middle class. We are struggling every day with adapting to a more intersectional way of working, and we need help with doing this. And we believe that the way of doing this is to work together with other feminists, with other experiences, and other ways of looking at things. So if you have a great initiative, let us know. I want to finish with saying that Ladyfest Malmö wants to be the good example. And we want to inspire, we want to help other producers to have a critical feminist view on their own work. And we believe that we, through events with females working on and off stage, show that it's possible to organize cultural events with focus on gender equality and make a great show of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa Franzén. Last but not least, welcome up on stage, Rujo Shigudo.
All women are sweet and soft. All women need a man to rescue them and take care of them. All little girls like pink and dolls, and little boys like cars and blue. Is that not true? Is that not true? Then why is that the prevailing stereotypical discourse? Why does the first thing my 3-year-old daughter learn about is Barbie? And my son, cars. If this isn't the reality, then why does everything around us tell us so? Look around you. TV advertisements of a loving, nurturing mother blowing the bruised knees of her child whilst the father comes home from work in his suit. Mom makes dinner and dad reads the newspaper. 2014. And yet these continue to be the same messages that we see and consume. In our intellectual minds, we have progressed way beyond that time. Surely we know better, we know more about gender equality. But that isn't reflected in what we see around us. Movies where women are the superheroes that don't need Prince Charming to come riding on his horse to rescue the damsel in distress. Why don't we see stronger, bolder women? Why do we hear in our news that 5,000 people died after an earthquake, most of them women and children? What special vulnerability does a woman carry that she requires special mention? I can understand children, but why women? How can we continue to talk about equality, yet all the images in the public domain about women say something different? We talk about the raped women in the DRC, in Rwanda, battered and broken. But I have a different challenge. When we talk about raped women, can we talk about how they have built their lives, rebuilt their lives? Can we talk about women and talk about their successes and how they've overcome their challenges and struggles? Because as it remains in film, movies, theater, dance, poetry, we constantly and continuously see images of women as something other than strong and in control. Where are the movies that are going to teach my daughter that she can do and be anything she chooses to be? Where are the films that will tell her she can challenge this so-called glass ceiling? Where are the dance festivals that celebrate the beauty that is woman and not the sexual objectification of the female body? I want to see a movie that celebrates the scars on a woman's body following childbirth as glorious and beautiful. I want to see an advert about stretch marks as being natural. Because 9 months of a 4-kilogram baby in someone's womb is going to give you stretch marks. But the media tells us there is bio oil to invisibilize your sacred beauty. I want to see more images in the arts that celebrate the real reality that women are. Not the shame. Yes, my breasts are saggy. They breastfed 2 children. And that is beautiful. But the images on television tell me I need a wonder bra or some surgery. When are we going to see art that reflects the beauty and sacredness that is the female being? I'm still waiting to see that kind of art. But that is not to say there is nobody who is making attempts. The amazing women that were on stage before me are talking about an artistic revolution. The things we hear are not enough. We talk about the ideal family, mommy, daddy, and 2 children. But that is not the current construction of every family. All we do is remind our daughters and sons that they are lacking something because they don't have a mommy and daddy and a sibling. I want to see images in art of mothers with their children. That's a family. Fathers with their children. That's a family. Children with their uncle and aunt. That's a family. Woman with woman and children is family. Man with man and children is family. But until we start to see those images in our work, in our art, our society will continue to expect mommy, daddy, and 2 kids. And when children don't have that, they're broken, devastated. We abnormalize our reality because what we say and what we see is completely different. I've heard a lot about equal rights, equal opportunities. But funny enough, I haven't seen enough. Where are the models of the kind of families we can create? Where are the models of the kind of lives women can lead? Where are the models for the kind of careers that little girls can dream about? Women's bodies are sites of struggle. In war, women are raped. In poverty, women carry loads and struggle to feed and fend for their children. But those are not the hero stories that we see. Those survivors are not the heroes of modern day art. What we see are men in armor and horses. Open your eyes. It is time to create a world of art that shows the beauty and the phenomena that women truly are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rudo. Please welcome to the middle. And welcome back, Anna and Tina. Thank you for your inspiration. And now I would like to talk with you about how equality can be achieved by using culture as a tool. And I would like to start there with that very broad question, a short reflection from each one of you. How can we use culture to create equality? Tina.
Well, first of all, Anna has already thought about the possibilities of getting funding. But I have researched activist culture, and there is always a possibility of making things also by yourself. So solo performances or having a group, etc. So that's also a possibility. So there is this institutionalized field of culture, and then there is the activist field of culture. Cinema is a little different because it's a very, very funding, it demands a lot of funding. Performance is in that sense easier. So these two ways, and then of course the cultural production, if the state pays. So anyway, in the Nordic countries we have laws, and we should actually follow those laws. And when it comes to multicultural performance, for instance, so our larger theatres like Stockholm City Theatre or the Dramatic Theatre, Royal Dramatic Theatre, they don't actually follow the law. So there is not enough representation of the citizens' bodies, for instance, when it comes to Sweden. So follow the law is a very good thing to do in this case. And
that's a very simple instruction.
It's a very simple instruction.
Anna, what do you say?
Hello. No, but I think that Tina is really right. And even though film is a very expensive art form, we can actually see that there are less female directors going in, for example, to short film right now. We don't know why. We have two different programs. You have to be sort of educated in film, but I want more women to apply. When we have earmarked money, which we did a couple of years ago, we had an action called the Rookie Project. We had like 200 applications of only female directors. But when we have our ordinary system, we don't see them. And I think, you have to just go out and do it. Because what you see is that, and that is actually what you were talking about, that we need those new stories. And I think that's why the past 4 years have been awarding female directors. It's not because they are much better directors or that they pick a much better team. It's because they tell stories that we haven't heard before. They tell the new perspectives. They say exactly the same thing about the society, but with another pair of glasses on. And that's why it's so important. But we need to encourage each other to actually take advantage of the money that really exists.
Rudo?
I think for me, what's most essential is to normalize equality, because as it exists, it's sort of an abnormal thing. We have to say it all the time. But I think we need to live it more, and I think that's what it comes down to. We need to see more of images of equality around us, in film, in theatre, on TV, in paintings. It just needs to look normal, because for a little child growing up, that's the first thing they see. For the adults who are in transition, that's another thing. But the more we normalize equality for the younger kids growing up, then the better a chance we have that the prevailing culture can change into one that's more equal.
I think that sounds like an excellent program. Follow the law, address female artists so that we can see more images. So there we have it.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, Tina. Ruda talked about that she misses art that reflects the beauty of the female. So from your horizon, can you see these kind of art elevating?
The question about beauty is, I think you could perhaps elaborate on that a little. I would say that if we are talking about sexism and homophobia and racism, for instance, within the Nordic cultural production, so the beauty of the not conventionally male body would be something, of course, to celebrate. But I wanted to say that sexism is a much larger thing than women's bodies. So there is this demand for representation of women on stage and on screen, in literature, etc. That's one thing. But I think that the structures of the narrative, how to tell stories and how to deal with things, even with male bodies or with queer bodies to start with. So it's a very large question, and that is something I would like to address. Following the law is not the only thing, because I guess that despite the celebration of the female body, you also mean attitudes. And we just had in Finland a case, or actually in the Nordic countries, there were a few Russian directors for symphony orchestras, and also one, a very senior kind of director who said that actually women could not be in the position of directing symphony orchestras, because then the musicians would only think about their female bodies, and that would be so disturbing to look at those women directing the symphony orchestras that would destroy the whole performance. So these kind of things, when they pop up in a context where you think that would really be yesterday's news, is still very surprising. So if we can't get over this sort of sexism and also performing these sexist acts in the media by saying them, and then when the media, the journalists ask that, are you really meaning that, then really saying yes, well then I guess we have a problem.
So Anna, what's your perspective on this? Can you see art elevating the kind of art that Rudo is searching for?
Well, it's hard to add something in this perspective because so much has been said, but I think that it's really important that the awareness in all levels in society rises. For instance, for the symphony orchestra, when you know for sure that when they were trying to get a gender equal orchestra, they started to have the audition behind curtains, because before it was only men that were qualified, they were the only competent people, but then they had the curtains, and surprisingly enough, men were still the only ones that were selected. And then someone was really smart or educated, so they put a thick carpet on the floor so you couldn't hear the steps, and suddenly they picked 50-50. And that is, it's so obvious that we make choices because we have expectations of where competence is. And as long we believe that our gut feeling is the right feeling, and that what we are thinking without reflecting is the right thought, we will never progress. So we need education, and we need it in all levels.
Rudo, I would like to ask you, as we heard in Tina's presentation, the cultural sector has, through, well, all history been a sector where women has been oppressed. But do you think or see or perceive that the cultural sector is still ahead compared to other sectors in society, especially business?
I think it presents a greater opportunity because I think the beauty of art is there's a time when you waited to be exhibited in somebody's gallery or waited for your book to be published by someone. And increasingly now I can blog and don't need anybody's permission to get my views out there. So there's a greater opportunity for women in the arts, because instead of waiting for someone to give you an opportunity or to validate the work that you create, we are in a position to create what we do and put it out there for public consumption, which in the past was very difficult. And I suppose in some industries like film, without the resourcing, you wouldn't be able to do that. So I think in culture and arts, there's definitely a greater opportunity for women to be able to put their voices out there.
Thank you. We will continue, but I know, Tina, you have to run. Thank you very much for participating in the panel and for your presentation. And we have a few more minutes. Thank you all. With Anna and Rudo. Good luck with your next appointment. So I would like to kind of ask the same question to you, Anna, because you have also been in the business sector. What is the difference, do you think? Is the cultural sector avant-garde, or is it just a self-perception?
Well, I think Rudo is really right, because art can be very self-fulfilling, sort of. You can do it and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I'm in the film business, which is very money demanding. So I would say it's no difference. And then it's really just another layer of soft awareness of the male geniuses, despite the female sort of wanting to become something. So I think when you come to culture, it can be worse, because you believe that you can just go on emotions, and then there is a right and a wrong. So I think business has a much easier way of just, putting up hard structures, but culture is full of soft structure.
So tell us about this initiative that brands gender equal films.
Well, I mean, what we are doing is not that we are branding equal films. What we are trying to do is to get equal films, and that the female key positions in film, which is directing, what we have considered, directing, script writing, producing, cinematography and editing, that they are shown to the world. And I think that I don't believe that that will be the big change, but we just need to work on all levels at the same time. And I think that the films themselves speak their own language. I mean, the films that, for instance, been made down here, Gabriella Pichler, Eat, Sleep, Die, that has traveled around the world, been invited to almost all film festivals in the world, because, and I think that's exactly her perspective as being just a citizen, but she's female, makes a totally new story. And that is so new that the whole world wants to see it. And that is actually putting the light on it.
Yeah. Thank you. We only have a couple of minutes left. I would like to ask you, Rudo, Arja Saijonmaa did not only sing beautifully, she also encouraged to a women's cultural revolution. How could that revolution be formed, and how can it be, performed?
I mean, her performance is evidence of the revolution brewing. And I think it's happening in all sorts of places. I'm part of a similar campaign, which is the Feminist Arts Revolution, where it's encouraged every woman has a voice. Every woman has a story to tell in whatever form of art that they're there to express. So I think the arts revolution is definitely a possibility, and it's starting to happen. And what we need is, like she said, we need every woman coming together and having a women's revolution.
Okay, thank you very much, Rudo Shigudo and Anna Saner.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. And now we have a short break of about 8 minutes, and please come back at 1 o'clock to listen to the session, The Politics of Hate, Misogyny and Neo-Fascism. Thank you very much.